This is a short training video to demonstrate how it's possible to define dependencies between CodeGen template files. Let's get started. I'm going to use my usual setup script to set up my environment with my default repository, my template directory and output directory both set to the current directory. And I've also copied in 3 of the sample templates that are provided with CodeGen, and these templates relate together and are used together. The one I'm primarily interested in is this database table.tpl template. What this template does is it creates a class that has methods that allow you to interact with a relational database table to create the table, delete the table, insert rows, delete rows, select rows, and so on, all based on a repository structure definition. Let's take a look at the template in Workbench. What we'll notice if we look down here is that this template is basically generating a public class based on the name of the structure. So if we're using our usual part structure, then it's going to create a class called part table. But notice that the part table is using inheritance, so it's extending another class called database table, and that base class is also generated by CodeGen. It contains common functionality that we can use across different table classes, so it makes sense to put those into a base class, and again that class is also code generated, and in fact we've got the template file that generates that class here. So if I were to generate a class using the database table class, I also need to remember to issue the appropriate CodeGen command to generate the database table base class. In fact, if we look further down here, we'll find that the class is also using or referring to something called database connection. And database connection is a class that represents a simple connection to a database. And again, those things can be shared across multiple database table classes. And again, this class is code generated, and we've got the template that generates the database table collection class here also. So again, I would have to remember that if I want to generate a database table, I need to make sure that I've got the base class created and the database connection class created. But I can actually simplify that process. So if I go into my high level or highest level template, my database table, this is the guy that requires the database table base class and also the database connection class. So what I can do is in my template file, I can use some generic tokens called, or a generic token in particular, called process template. And similar to the CodeGen file name, excuse me, I pressed the wrong key there. Similar to CodeGen file name, it has an opening and closing token. And between there, I can name another template that I want to process. Well, I'm going to need 2 of these. So let's just duplicate that again. And I can simply specify in here that I also, when I process this template, I also want to process the database table base class, and I want to process the database connection template. So the idea is that whenever I issue a CodeGen command that generates code from this template, it will also process this template and this template. So hopefully we're going to see 3 source codes, source files generated when we generate from this template. Let's give it a try. So here we're going to issue our CodeGen command. We're going to process from the template database table. We're going to use the structure from the repository called part. Again, we're generating a class that's in a namespace. It has a namespace token in there, so we need to give it a namespace. Let's call this SQL classes, and let's have it list the file that is created, or files that are created. And we'll go ahead and run the code. And as you can see, sure enough, we've asked CodeGen to process just this one template, but within that template, we've also specified that we also need a database table base template to be processed and the database connection template to be processed. So 3 files are being generated, and so on.